Well, welcome to the Powerhouse Reset. I'm so glad you could join us. And I did hear everything that you were telling me. If you wouldn't mind putting into the chat, where you're joining us from today, too. I'd love to know. Just always fun to see like where everyone's coming in from. I know we have a few people joining us on the recording, and then some of us who will be live as well. Today is really about how do we start to kind of reset ourselves, not only, for businesses, but even within our own lives. Um, whether you're looking to transition and start a business or an advisory, or you're already operating your business, I think that sometimes we can start to feel like we are on this never-ending treadmill. And I know for me personally, I'm no stranger to stress. I'm no stranger to packed calendars, to lots of things that are happening. I'm also a mom. I've come from the corporate world. And sometimes we have to learn to step back for a minute and understand how do we recalibrate? How do we reset all of the things that are taking place within our lives so that we can actually function in the way that we're needing to, in the way that's actually been called forth. I think a lot of us have greater things on our minds, on our hearts, bigger goals, bigger visions. And sometimes we can get lost in all of the messiness when it comes to how do I go about and do all of these things. So I'd love to know are there business owners in here? Are there people who are thinking about starting a business? Kind of where are we at?
I'm not, so I'm gonna jump from the call, okay? Just to save time. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Well, whether you're a business owner or not, I've worked with Fortune 500 leaders, corporate executives, and I think that there's one thing that we all want to do, which is leave an impact. And that was probably the biggest thing for me when I was still in corporate and I was rising up in my corporate career. And then I wanted to find ways to really create greater freedom and flexibility within my life. And when I started to go around that, when I wanted to think about how do I start moving into that, I know that I started to feel, number one, like I needed to do everything and I really wasn't good enough. I had a lot of imposterism. And I also leaned heavily into being the person who would do it all. And to tell me that I couldn't do it all was probably the biggest roadblock that I faced, because I felt like I had to. And I think that's how I had risen in my corporate career, but it's not necessarily how we can run a business efficiently or smoothly, or an advisory, if that's what our goals are, because there is so much information out there in the world, but none of it is going to perfectly align for who you are, the life that you lead, the goals that you have, and what it is that you're looking to accomplish. So I'll go ahead and I'll try to share my screen here so we can kind of look at the workbook together and see how do we start to create greater room in our lives. Okay, so hopefully you can see it. All right. When we have conviction around what it is that we're doing, that is the cornerstone to what it is that we're going to create in our lives. And when we start to feel like we're tipping off balance, like the things that we're wanting to create are starting to run our lives, it's usually an indicator that we need to step back, we need to recalibrate, we need to reset into what are those conviction markers so that we have the clarity necessary. And when we're too busy, what we end up doing inadvertently is actually shutting out our ability to have creative ideas, our ability to connect, our ability to do really all of the things that we truly want to do, because we're still in this mode, this operation of do, and we don't take the mental breaks, the necessary mindset resets to really understand if the work that we're doing is actually moving the needle. And I like to think of it in a couple of ways. How we take our conviction moving us into what our calm state is. What is it that we are filled with? What's filling our cup? How do we create that sense of renewal for ourselves? And when we can do that, then we can create a sense of clarity. And that's neuroscience. That's how our brains function. That's how our brains work when we're in executive function mode for too long, too often. We're essentially shutting down. And so if we move place ourselves into a place of burnout, what we're going to find is that we don't have the inspiration, we don't have the passion that we once did. We don't even have the clarity around what it is that we're really trying to do. Why did I start all of this in the first place? And that's where we see business owners, we see founders, we see advisors start questioning whether the work that they're doing, number one, matters or has meaning, and whether they should continue. Is it even worth it? And so we have to have the clarity in order to develop the cadence necessary to create sustainability within our lives, within our businesses, what it is that we're looking to create. Because you are not on a sprint. This is a marathon. This is something that you're going to be running endurance training for. And so you have to understand, number one, how do you create those necessary yeses so that you can also move into those necessary nos? And I cannot count on my hands how many times I've worked with various leaders, whether they're at top of the company or a new small business owner, who struggles with saying no, struggles with saying no to an opportunity, struggles with saying no on taking more onto their plate, or just understanding how do they take all of the ideas, all my polymaths in the house, how do you take all of those various ideas and structure them in a way where you're not thinning yourself out? And this is where I like to consider, what's that founder fog that we experience? So maybe you can take a few moments and just kind of check the boxes, see which ones feel true for you. Are there too many ideas and not enough integrations? Like you are hungover from hustle. I know I have felt that many times. Is there a fear of being left behind, fear of slowing down? Maybe it's just not knowing how to articulate. And so you start doing too many things because you feel like more is more, when sometimes less is more. Or really just building from anxiety versus building from alignment, building from clarity, and having really concrete ideas on what will bring that forth in a greater way. And so you can ask yourself, what do I deeply believe about my work that maybe I've stopped acting on? Maybe I've stopped doing the things that I was most aligned with because I'm being pulled in all of these different directions. Maybe they seem like a good fit even, but is it aligned for you? I know when I moved into coaching initially, I started moving into leadership coaching quite heavily because that's where I was being pulled. That's where the most opportunities were. That was the greatest ability for me to start scaling my business. But it wasn't the reason that I moved into coaching. I moved into coaching to help other people realize their own visions, their own dreams, and how to turn those into reality because of my background in branding and strategy and corporate, like product development, software development, and leading strategic initiatives. I wanted to couple that with coaching to truly help people find what was right for them. But inadvertently, I had moved heavily into leadership coaching such that I didn't even know what my own voice was anymore. And I can tell you, I don't know, after 12 plus certifications, some of them are very useful, but that wasn't who I was. That wasn't necessarily what I was truly wanting to build. And so I had to step back and I had to reset and recalibrate so that I could understand. And maybe you've been there. Maybe you've found all of these different people or opportunities that maybe you seem like a right fit for in their eyes. But sometimes we struggle to know, where does that mean? What does that mean for us? Where am I creating from fear and not faith? Faith in ourselves, faith in what it is that we're wanting to create, faith in that belief, self-efficacy. And sometimes we allow fear, that part of our brain, to run the show. And fear doesn't always look like stagnation or procrastination. It can, but sometimes fear looks like adding more to our plate, taking on more, being busy for the sake of being busy, because it enables us to ignore the deeper, possibly more relevant pieces that maybe is a little bit harder to look at. So, in what ways do you feel like maybe fear is causing you to drive forward when what you need is really to step back? And what would peace look like if it became a business strategy? Do you bake into your life the freedom that initially you wanted? I found myself getting overly busy, overly packed on with more and more and more. And we're busy. We have 2 podcasts, we have an online community that we run, we have clients, we are doing a lot. But I also homeschool my son. I want to be present. I want to be present for the moments in the life that that I'll miss basically if I'm not. And that's exactly why I moved into wanting to become a business owner in the first place. I was already missing out on the majority of his childhood, working nights, working weekends in my corporate role. And I missed those pieces. And so moving into being a business owner, I didn't want to replace the freedom of calling my own shots for missing out on what truly mattered, and homeschooling and really being present with my son. So ask yourself, what are the areas that you can cull out so that you are intentionally moving forward? And the more that we can do this type of work, the greater success, the greater ability to hone our messaging, the greater ability to have the clarity necessary so that we know that we're speaking to the right people, to the right audience, and solving the right problems. So I developed the conviction framework, which is how we anchor ourselves. And if you are familiar with the Powerhouse Legacy Collective, I have something called the refinery system, and we have something called root to rise. And this is very similar to that. So how do we anchor ourselves so that we can then align? And when we're aligned, we're better positioned to act in accordance with what it is that we feel called to do. Then we can ship proof. Then we can show what it is that we've been working on. But when we're scattered, there is no clarity. And what we're creating oftentimes has no clarity. So when we're leading from a place of conviction and purpose, we can better align all of the efforts and all of the output that we're creating. And that's the powerhouse principle. When you lead from conviction, your brain's prefrontal cortex reactivates, and it's the part responsible for clarity, creativity, and confidence. Pressure will shut you down, but conviction will help to bring you back online. And I know that when I was burnt out, especially after I left my corporate role, I didn't even realize how burnt out I was. It took several months for me to get back on track because my brain needed to heal. It needed to heal from the trauma that I had been experiencing and putting myself through. And it's interesting how so often that state of normalcy is that state of burnout, that state of stress, because we've conditioned our bodies to operate as such. And we have to recondition our bodies to recognize that that isn't normal. So to not put ourselves back there. So the conviction map is a way that you can really consider, what's your conviction? What are your core beliefs, your core values? For me, I think about integrity, presence, accountability. These are the things that will help to connect you, help to anchor you into what it is that you're creating so that you can move forward. It's your driver. This then can lead to the actions that you are outputting, what aligns for you. And sometimes I consider these to be core pillars that we can operate from, core pillars around what we design our businesses for, whether it's, for me, it's faith, it's freedom, it's power. And for me, power is being empowered. And if you know my story, if you've listened to my podcast, The Hello You Show, then you'll know a little bit more about that. But power and then legacy. What am I leaving behind? And everyone's going to have different pillars. They're intended to be a guidepost for what it is that you're creating so that all of your content, all of the things that you're doing align around that and act as a reminder for yourself. Anytime that you start to question, is this in alignment? You can revisit those core values and those pillars. And that will help you to set your rhythm, your cadence. How are you going to fit in all of the pieces of your life so that it makes sense, so that it works? And this is what brings you peace. This is what brings you the clarity and the peace to say, this isn't going to be a right fit for me. Or, no. And sometimes that means no to opportunities. And sometimes it means no even to family or friends or other people who mean well. But we have to empower ourselves. And sometimes that word is so hard, especially if we come from a people-pleasing background or anywhere where, for some reason we found success by proving ourselves. And that was incredibly true for me and for many of my clients. And that enables you to think about what it is that you ship, what it is that is your proof, so to speak, of what it is you're creating. The conviction compass, this is what points you home. And you can ask yourself, what do I know is true? What feels clear right now? What rhythm would help sustain this? I know when I started the podcast, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. And when we're excited about something, it's easy. But when you've been doing it for 2 years, you have to develop rhythms and cadence to make it sustainable. Because again, running a marathon is very different than sprinting. And you have to have some sort of proof. What's a small way that you can show your truth today? And there's 2 reasons that you want to do this. Not only so you can demonstrate your skills and what it is that you bring to the world, but you need to demonstrate it for yourself in your own mind so that you can tap into that reward center, that reward cycle of your brain that moves you from fear to intrinsic motivation. That's what enables dopamine to drop. That's what enables you to see more clearly and believe in yourself, going back to having the faith and the self-efficacy to keep going. All of it intertwines, all of it is connected. And if we burn ourselves out, if we're stretched too thin, this is the work that we don't make room for. And we don't have the clarity to know when we need to step back or when we're in reactionary mode versus being proactive on our jobs or our work. Peace isn't passive, it's productive. We have to be intentional with how we create peace in our lives. We have to be intentional with how we step away so that we can step into greater action. And if we're not intentional with it, we won't have any. We won't make room for it. And I tell this a lot to my corporate clients who have, meeting schedules, 14 meetings deep in the day. How are they creating moments of freedom? Moments where their brain can have clarity, creativity. And sometimes that means just taking 5 minutes to go step outside, go get a different perspective, go have another view of the world. For me, we just recently increased our chicken flock. We have 15 chickens now. It's really different than the life I used to lead. That's for me. I go outside anytime I feel too inundated with what's happening, and we sit in front of our computer sometimes and we're just in this little box. I go outside and I can see the rest of the world, life that doesn't involve any of these other things. And it can bring clarity and it can bring peace. And we can step into our work with greater conviction and power and purpose. So when we have aligned action, we have energy level consistency. And so consider for yourself, what are ways that you can create more of this for yourself this coming month? I know we're at the end of October. November is coming right around the corner here. How can you create energy level consistency? If you have a team or you work with a team, how do you create communication flow? Sometimes I get people asking me, how big is my team? I have a small team, but I also have a team that supports me and my family and people I'm communicating with and PR agency people. They're all my team. And they're all people that I'm having to communicate with. And they're all people that I have to recognize that if I am not in a right state, my communication is going to be off. And so it's constantly having to step back and think, am I showing up in the way that I need to? Am I being a leader in my life? Am I being a leader in my business? Am I acting as such? And how can we create fewer reactive decisions? When we're operating out of a place of fear or anxiety or lack, those reactive decisions, those responses, sometimes they don't lead to greater outcomes, right? So we have to consider, what are the areas that we can create greater awareness, and what can we do to support ourselves? And at the end of the workbook, for those of you who have it, there's a conviction contract that you can create for yourself, and there's a reflection that you can think of. So we've been really building inside of the community that some ways to support you in a greater way, and I'm very excited about it. The Powerhouse Legacy Collective is kind of the heartbeat of my coaching. It's the heartbeat of what we've been creating as a community. And I'll show you a little bit of it so that you can see more of this work, because this is just a reset, but what we create in there are rhythms to establish cadences within your business, rhythms to establish ways that you can amplify your brand, understand your messaging, and have clarity with how you are connecting with other individuals and other people. And so we bring it all into fruition through the community, acting as kind of a hub for your business, as a hub not only for supporting you, but also helping you to ship what feels most aligned. And I think the most important piece that I wanted to bring forth with that was, there are so many systems out there in the world that people will tell you exactly what worked for them or what to do. But if it's not for you, then it's not designed for you. And then the whole opposite of this is that everything here is intentionally designed for you. And so we've created systems in place to help you with that. So let me go ahead and show you if I have the right one quickly. So the Powerhouse Legacy Collective, honestly, it's really beautiful. We've spent a lot of time trying to make it really beautiful. And so when you come into the community, what you have right away is a 30-day Powerhouse plan. It's a 30-day reset. It's a way to learn how to handle objections, learn how to establish boundaries, learn how to develop your leadership value proposition, how you position yourself in the market so that you're speaking to the right audience and you understand who they are. Who are the people that you're really wanting to reach? And we set that all up so that you can have a system and a cadence to get you going. And I think this is really helpful, whether you're a new business owner or whether you're already established, because sometimes we forget these pieces, and it walks you through developing your core values, those pillars that we discussed. We also have monthly themes that we roll out. This last theme was rooted in our worth, and we have signature sessions that we host every month, as well as a creators circle. We have something called the Powerhouse Parade. Inside the Powerhouse Parade is a form that you can upload, and every month you can submit for feedback, whether it's a landing page or scripts, or how do I set my social media profile so that it's attracting the right audience? How do I create greater visibility? And then I provide you feedback, and I'll send it in the form of a Loom or a video with actionable items that you can then take forward to make some edits and help propel you. We have other things as well, the connection concierge, which is a very bespoke method. So if you're looking to connect with specific types of individuals, or you need people to come onto your podcast, or you're looking for greater visibility, then you can submit that, and then either members of the community or our team will look for people to help connect you with based on the connections that we have. And so this is still growing. We also have a private podcast, the Powerhouse Signal. This comes out bi-weekly. There's short segments that help to deepen your connection with what it is that you're creating, help to remind you of that conviction that drives you forward in your business so that you feel like you have a root back into what, the whole reason that you started to develop this, the whole reason for your brand, and how you can start to really connect with that even more deeply. And the best thing is both on desktop, it's on mobile. So we have bi-monthly sessions. We have the Refinery Salon. That's where we meet for 90 minutes once a month, and we talk about what that monthly theme is, and we dive deeper into Q&A. We have the Creator Circle. That's where you get to know other members of the community, how you can forge partnerships. Connecting and networking is important. The most important thing is how you can create partnerships, how you can create alignment with other individuals where the two of you can start supporting each other and helping each other to grow your brands. That's how I've been able to grow my brand the best. So members can then have access to everything, signature sessions, the Powerhouse Parade, resources, libraries. We have lots of resources that are available depending on where you are. If you're building thought leadership, advisory, your executive brand even, or your business. We also have a custom GPT that we created that helps you identify your brand language, which is incredibly important. And it's all based on your core values. It's based on your pillars. And we also have a custom brand archetype assessment that you can take. And then it helps to align what your brand archetype and your leadership style is so that you can start creating around that. We also have additional perks for members who are annual members, where you can also have another access to Iconic Muse, which is another custom GPT that helps you develop your offers and your systems. You have access to Goalster, which is a goal setting app. It's kind of like accountability in your pocket. And we help to create custom roadmaps for you so that you know exactly what you're going to be doing every week, every month. We also have quarterly brand templates. We have the Legacy Lab, which are sprints and execution labs and notes and case studies. And then you have private sessions in the Brand Refinery, which I think for all of this, which is very different than any community I've ever seen. And I've been a part of a lot of communities. I've looked at a lot of communities. It's $67 a month for monthly members. And then annual members, it's $670. So it's about 2 months free for you, or you can pay in installments. So if you're interested in learning more, you can check it out at Join PLC, or you can scan the QR code. And I'd love to have you come in, join us inside. The whole intention of the community is to build systems around you specifically. Build systems around your brand, what it is that you want to create for yourself, and create bespoke solutions that aren't necessarily someone else's system, but they're uniquely yours. How you're developing your own IP, how you're setting yourself apart, what's your differentiator. All of these things that are incredibly important when you're learning how to set yourself apart as a brand. And I think for advisors, this is really important, especially if you've attached yourself to another company, another product, another service. Adding that as your credibility layer, but it's not necessarily your brand. And I think there's a lot of confusion, especially even for coaches, around what's a credibility layer versus what's my business. And I think I've seen that a lot in the market. So if you're looking to know how to start creating language and systems around your brand and not someone else's, this is the perfect spot to do it. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. As always, you can DM me on LinkedIn, find me there, or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. Again, go to Join PLC to learn more. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream and then I'll open it up for any questions.